Hi, everybody. Happy New Year. Happy 2026. I hope you guys are doing great and are navigating through this beautiful new chapter that we are all beginning to experience. 2025 has definitely been an interesting year, and that nine energy, that closing out energy, has definitely been prominent, I think, for a lot of us this past year, where we were really looking at refining different parts of our lives. We were looking at letting go. We were looking at cultivating the light from within ourselves and really sitting in a place of darkness, sitting in the hermit phase of our life and going into the void and really just being in that space. And it really got me thinking a lot because I've been in this very quiet, contemplative state in most of 2025. I've really been retreating and really working on myself in very deep ways. And that void space has been a very important component because a lot of us don't really take the time to sit in that quiet space and sit with ourselves. And this past year has been an extremely important time for us to be in that space and to be able to listen to our own voices and to be able to really tune into our own energy field and what is in alignment and not in alignment for us. And I just published this article on Substack around the idea of coherence and how can we return to our wholeness in a world that is very fragmented right now. Everywhere you look, you see a lot of fragmentation happening. And this is really a call to each of us to go deeper into ourselves during these periods so that we may be able to emerge in a way that is much more stable, much more coherent for ourselves, and that we are fully in tune with ourselves and our energy to the point where we have clear distinctions about what is ours and what is not ours, what is in alignment for our highest good, not for something outside of us. And those quiet moments are the times that we really need to retreat to be able to hear ourselves. The most dangerous and the spiritually dangerous moments I've had in my life have not come from facing darkness. And I have faced a lot of darkness in my life. But they have come from being in these experiences of where people and situations have been dressed in this love and light cloak and this higher purpose cloak and this promising of becoming more. And there is this exhaustion that comes from betraying yourself in the name of evolution. And it doesn't announce itself. Sleep really comes in very slowly. It seeps into your life. And then one day you start to realize that your energy field has been leaking energy all over the place because you thought you were being filled and you thought that you were on a path of being of service and assisting. And instead, you were really just fragmenting your entire energy field. And this is a very big lesson that I have really come through in 2025, that my need and desire to be of service for the greater good was actually coming at a great cost to myself. And there was a lot of situations that came into my life that made me realize, oh, even though I think I'm doing things for the greater good, and I am, and my intentions are always of the highest and purest state of love, it's still very easy to get thrown off course. And a lot of that is because the architecture of the entire system, including the spiritual structures, the quote spiritual community, is built on a system that is meant to keep us in a constant state of fragmentation. Our world is designed this way. We are constantly in distraction mode. We're overloaded by technology, we're overloaded by information, we're overloaded by conflicting narratives going on, and we're constantly trying to juggle and switch between different roles and responsibilities. And we're trying to keep everything in motion while staying upright ourselves. And frankly, we're all just exhausted. And, the economy itself is built around this whole idea of keeping us in this state of fragmentation. If we are distracted, if we are dumbed down, if we're heavily medicated, we don't have the ability to be in a place of quiet, in a place of contemplation, and this space in which we can really listen to the subtle cues that we are receiving. And we have to have a very calm presence in order to be able to refine that and to be able to pick up on the subtleness, the subtle energy cues. And those subtle energy cues allow us to refine our energy field constantly so that we are emotionally regulated. And when we are emotionally regulated, when we have a calm mind, when we're physically connected to our body, and when we're spiritually and energetically sound, nothing else can penetrate through that. And if it tries to penetrate through it, the alert system starts to go off much quicker. We start to recognize those patterns, and we're able to navigate through those in a different way. This past year in 2024, I had been really in a state of isolation from late 2023 and really been just, sitting by myself. I was not seeking outside counsel. I worked with a couple of really great people, but I really had not worked one-on-one with any, quote, spiritual mentor or anything for quite some time. My experiences in the past had been ones of I would get in these situations, I would start working with somebody, and then I realized, this really isn't a good fit. And there was something that would always turn me to a different direction, and away from that situation. But I was really committed in 2024 to trying to find somebody to be able to work with one-on-one. And I had a person come into my field that seemed like it was a really good alignment for me and be able to help me navigate through some things that I was experiencing that were not surface level spiritual stuff. This was very complex, deeply complex spiritual things that I was going through at the time. And, doing that alone sometimes can be overwhelming. It can be daunting. And so you do want to have some sort of connection with somebody who can understand that. They may not have gone through that themselves, but at least you could have somebody who you could, have some conversations with around that. And what was interesting through the situation is it was not anything about this person in general, but what I was being shown was that seeking counsel outside of myself was one way that I was continuing this narrative of this servitude, this spirituality as servitude narrative. And it was becoming very clear to me through this experience, and the way that things were kind of unfolding, that I was continuing to be directed outward towards work, towards responsibility, towards energetic labor that did not originate from my own knowing. And when I began to see these patterns, my energy field began to fragment because I was participating in something that asked me to override myself. And that guidance wasn't emerging from coherence within me. It was actually pulling from me. And that subtle distinction made all the difference in the world. And it culminated in this whole understanding that I needed to liberate myself from this spiritual structure that had been constructed. And all of it, the entire thing, if we look at government structures, banking structures, education structures, and the spiritual structures, I'm not talking religious structures, that's another structure, but I'm talking about spiritual structures. There's always this hierarchical kind of order that has been sold to us, that there are these beings and there are these different structures outside, and there is some hierarchical thing that's coming in. And when I chose myself in that period, when I said, this isn't a right fit for me, and I choose myself and I free myself from any sort of spiritual servitude, the entire structure collapsed. The entire structure collapsed. And I was even working with some energies of the archangel realms. And all of the archangel realms energies began to dissipate. They began to move away. And this was because there was a whole restructuring going on within myself. And so everything that I had come to work with, rely upon, co-create with, all of those things needed to go away for a while. And I needed to come into myself, and that by doing that, by coming back into myself and sitting in the still point, or what I call the 0 point, that was really the breaking point and the turning point for me to come back to myself. And, none of this was about confrontation at all, or really collapsing. It was really about listening. And being able to really tune into those subtle shifts allowed me to pay attention to these structural ideals that had been really kind of co-opted, and I don't know what the right word is to say, but I could just tell that this was not something that I wanted to continue to go down, or even talk about, or be public about, or try and continue that legacy anymore. And for years I have done that. That is completely 100% part of some of the things that I have taught and I have talked about in the past. But I think we all have to go through these journeys, our own personal journeys, and we have to find these things out for ourselves in some ways. And so this was my big lesson of 2025, was to understand that the entire spiritual system was a construct, and that was designed to keep us in a state of servitude in the name of a higher purpose. And for me, it was not built for my personal freedom. And for me, I made the decision that my personal freedom had to come from 100% being in my own energy field, being in the void and sitting at the 0 point, to understand that I operate and completely manage my own field, my own reality, my own everything. And that was an important lesson and distinction for me in this past year. So when we talk about coherence, what does coherence really mean? And not as some spiritual bullshit, but what does it mean to me as a lived experience? And here's what I've come to understand. Coherence is the embodied state of inner alignment, in which thought, emotion, body, and soul move as one unified field, without fragmentation, without suppression, without force. What I learned in 2025 is that when I've got a nervous system that's regulated, when my heart is open, when my awareness rests in my presence rather than any reaction or any doing or any producing, it allows you to fully be in your truth. And your truth can then be felt, it can be expressed, and it can be lived simultaneously. It's about remembering your wholeness, which is not achieved through effort or discipline or correction, which a lot of us are taught, right? But it's restored through the attunement and the self-honesty and the embodied listening. It's not about life becoming easier because we are part of a human experience and we are still going to have these experiences that present lessons to us in order for our soul to evolve at greater levels. This is Earth School, okay? This is the PhD program that we are all in. And so when we come in and we have these experiences, our experiences become clear. Our decisions become simplified. Our energy stabilizes. We're no longer splintering in response to these pressures coming from the outside or these systems that are designed to make us splinter and to keep us fragmented, but we're stabilizing at our own frequency. And this allows us to move through these times of intensity, of uncertainty, of transition in a state of personal sovereignty rather than operating out of survival mode. And a lot of us have a very challenging time understanding what is survival mode versus what is actual coherence, especially if you had a childhood experience that was very chaotic. I did. My normal baseline completely was about chaos. The home was always in chaotic mode. I had a brother who got terminally ill and died when I was between 11 and 14 years of age. So in these formative years of development, it was complete chaos. There was not a lot of stability during those periods of my life. And so my baseline normal has always been that. It has always been about that fragmented state. So it takes these peeling back of these layers, which I've done for years and years and years and years and years. And I think I finally got back to the net, right? I've peeled all the stuff back. And 2025 was really about coming back to the net and coming back to the core and the pure essence of who I really am. The last 5 to 6 years, we're entering 6 years since 2020. We've traveled a lot of ground in that time, and all of us have gone through massive, massive shifts and changes. And this is all, obviously on purpose. It is stretching us to so many different places. It's stretching our consciousness in ways that we did not think was possible. 2020 was the foundational collapse. This was the year that reality really cracked open. We saw the systems breaking so we could see more truth coming to light. And our stability was really challenged at the root level. This was the year that our root chakra really got challenged. It was about, is your foundation really stable? Because the root chakra is tied to the immune system of the collective. And obviously we had a massive collective immunity crisis happening across the globe. In 2021, this entered the collective 5-year. There was a lot of instability that year, a lot of awakening. Everything began to accelerate at that point, and freedom was demanded and often chaotically during this period, and our nervous systems continued to be stretched. In 2022, this was a 6-year collectively. This was really focusing on responsibility and healing. We all started to realize that we were really holding and carrying way too much. And so themes around family, around duty, around grief, around repair began to surface for all of us. In 2023, this was the 7-year. This was the year of true spiritual kind of mastery. This was the inner reckoning year. It was about turning inward. It was about spiritual questioning. It was about disillusionment. Many realized that the old way of doing things is no longer working. For me personally, this was a double harm year from Chinese astrology. So it was both exhilarating and it was absolutely devastating all at the same time. I was in this really duality state of having to release a lot in my life, a lot of people, a lot of situations, facing a lot of darkness in order to choose myself. Then we hit 2024. This was the 8 year for the collective. What I experienced in 2023 became much more prominent for the collective in 2024. This was about power and sovereignty. This was about power dynamics becoming more visible. People learned where they're leaking energy more and where to reclaim it. And then we got to 2025, which was the 9 year. This is about the completion and the release. This is the year of letting go of old identities, of timelines, of relationships, of roles falling away. And it was the year of emotional composting. And now we are starting anew. So while we technically haven't hit the new year yet, that really happens when we hit Aries season and we begin to move into spring. But we're already in the energy of the 10 year. This is the coherent rebirth. This is not frantic new beginnings, but this is about building a stable foundation. This is about returning to your center, and it's about living a life that is from that 0 point. So if you look at the 10 from a numerology standpoint, 1 is the initiation or the rebirth energy. This is where the foundation gets laid down. This is where it gets reinforced if it's already been fairly intact for you. The 0 is the 0 point. This is what some people would call source point energy. I call it the void. I call it the nothingness, where everything is birthed. Think of it as the mother energy. It is the great womb. It is where we go to form any idea and to birth anything new. So this is all about action guided by alignment, and our movement is rooted in stability. This is the year of the inner job in many ways. And while 2025 was being asked, you were being asked to really sit in the hermit mode in 2025. 2026 is really about focusing on you. It is definitely that one energy that is coming through. I was just going to look at my tarot book to understand what the major arcana was for number 1, and it's the Magician. And the Magician is about skill, it's about natural talents, it's about powers of manifestation, creativity, and resourcefulness. And I think that's the right way to look at it, because the Magician is literally creating from nothingness. It is about creating the magic all around you from your own inner guidance. So the big questions to ask yourself as you start to move into this 10-year, or, some people call it the 1 year, some people call it the 10-year. Chinese astrology is going to be the fire horse year. So you think about a horse is freedom. Fire, energetically, the fire is about burning away things, right? It moves quickly. So if we thought 2025 moved fast and we blinked and the year was already over, 2026 is definitely going to be a year of even more energy. We also have outer planets moving into fire and air signs permanently. So planets like Neptune and Saturn that have been in Pisces, they're wrapping up their cycle in February, then moving into Aries. They'll dip back into Pisces just a little bit in a retrograde, but for the most part, we are in the fire. Uranus is moving into Gemini. So again, an air sign, we are going to have, permanently this. In 2025, we had a taste of it, and then we had a dance back to the water signs and the earth signs, and now we're moving back fully into this air and fire energy. So where can you find coherence in your life? Number one, recognize symptoms. Okay, where are you feel split, exhausted, maybe reactive? Where do your actions not match your values? So this is a big question. This is second house energy in astrology, is about your personal value system, right? What are your personal values? What is it, what does it mean to have integrity for you? What is the integrity threshold for you? Those are the things to ask yourself. And where do you say yes but mean no? Where do you not have good, strong boundaries with people? When it comes to yourself, the nervous system is your biggest kind of checkpoint as far as, do you feel calm, collected, cool, and is it regulated? Are you honest with yourself? Are the feelings that you're feeling actually your feelings? Or are you holding the weight for other people? And a lot of us do that. A lot of us hold the emotions and the weight of other people. I'm going to do a whole nother episode around that, because that I see a lot, and it really can weigh you down. Do you have energetic boundaries? Where are you leaking your energy? Do you have a consistent practice that you can return to your center? And make a list. What did you release in 2025 in the 9 year? I know this year I have been very focused on routine and really been disciplined in my actions. I even did a 40-day total reset of everything, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, cut out sugar completely, really have been lifting weights again, walking, meditating, doing some advanced stuff, journaling, doing emotion and body code releasing, really being very, very disciplined about releasing anything that I was holding and making sure that I was continuing to stay in my own energy field. And then, some of the things you can do is, when you are facing any sort of decisions that you need to make, can you sit in a place of neutrality, even for 12 hours, 24 hours before you make a move? Just give yourself time and space to breathe, and time and space just to be in the nothingness. So if you're able to do that, that's going to give you a lot more opportunity for clarity and a lot more opportunity for your truth to come out before you have to make a decision or make a pivot move in any part of your life. So it's really important that you find that clarity first, and that you're operating not out of a fear or an energy from somebody else moving you in that direction, but that you're operating from your own authority in what you want to actually do. As we enter this new chapter as a collective, we definitely have an opportunity to choose a new path. And I talk about this a lot, that the evolutionary journey that we are all on right now comes with free will. And we have the power to choose differently. We also have the ideas. We have the ability to bring forth new ideas to the consciousness of the collective and be able to change the trajectory and the way that we're living. But we have to start with ourselves first. And it's allowing yourself the freedom to be with yourself. We don't need more fractured achievers in this world. That's just something I have learned, that I don't need to achieve anymore. I do not have a desire to achieve. I have a desire to fully be myself. I have a desire to be fully vulnerable and raw and honest and open. And maybe that will ripple out in some way. But I just need to be me. And I need to be embodied fully. And that is something I have chosen to do, is fully be embodied in this experience as a human. So my question I will leave you with on this time is, what would change in your life if you were to choose coherence over compliance and presence over performance? I am wishing all of you the most prosperous and love-filled 2026 that you have ever experienced. We are on this amazing journey together. I am certainly excited for what is coming for all of us, because this year is a year of great change for us individually and collectively. And I am definitely excited to see what happens next. Take care of yourselves.